I'm Carole Leathem, and you're listening to a bonus episode of the Caretakers Journey podcast. I'm your host, and I want to welcome you to day 20 of our Caretakers 31 Day Resolve Challenge. I cannot believe that we are on day 20. Today, our resolve centers around the idea of planning for the future. So grab your Post-it note and write, I resolve to plan for the future by preparing legal and financial documents like powers of attorney or wills. So, why is this important? Well, when my husband came home from the psychiatric hospital, I had to take over every aspect of our life. I had to figure out what credit cards we had. I had to figure out how to pay them. I had to figure out where our money was. I had to get ready for his Social Security. I had to go to the Social Security office with him and get him signed up. I had to work with the people that we had been paying our retirement plan into and get that all worked out. And the financial issues were daunting. It was overwhelming for the first probably month trying to figuring it all out. And then because of some circumstances, I had my medical bills piling up. I didn't have any idea how I was going to pay for those. So I'm trying to budget now on our very limited income, figure out how to pay those. And finally, how do I get the doctors to talk to me? So I have a friend who is an estate planning attorney. I made a phone call and I said, I need help. I reached out to her and I just said, please give me some advice. The first thing she said to me was that I needed to change my healthcare directive and my living will because my husband, Bill, was in no mental or emotional state to make decisions for me if something happened to me and I became incapacitated. I also needed to make arrangements in case with a loved one or a family member to oversee his care and figure out all our financial stuff in the event that I was incapacitated because he couldn't do it. I had never thought about any of this. But after I talked further with my friend, the lawyer, I approached my daughter and I had a conversation with her, and she agreed with me. And so, with my attorney friend's help, we made all the needed changes to the paperwork and got it all set up so that I could walk away and feel comfortable that if something happened to me, things were going to be taken care of. Now, before I go any farther, I need to make a little clarification. Let me make a statement. I am sharing things that I have done. I'm not an attorney. I'm not a financial planner. These are suggestions that I'm giving you from my own personal experience. Each of our journeys are going to look different and they're going to need different people to help with. So you need to get in contact with your attorney or your own financial planner, and you need to make your own decisions. I'm going to give you what I did and list some of the things that I had to do to plan for the future and make adjustments immediately when my husband became unable to do it. So I'm going to break it down into a couple of sections. The first section is the legal preparation. This was probably the most overwhelming one because we had a trust, we had all of our living wills, we had all of that done, but it all needed to be changed because when we moved, we sold our house, our income changed, so many things changed. So my attorney went in and took all of our paperwork and made the adjustments. So I needed both a durable power of attorney for my finances and a healthcare proxy to ensure that I or my daughter could make financial or medical decisions if needed. Wow, I had never thought about that. I created a new living will and trust. And if you have one, you might need to make updates to it now. I did. It was old. It wasn't even up to date within a few years of my husband's trip to the psychiatric hospital. So I worked with my attorney to protect our assets and make sure that everything is distributed as we originally intended. And we appointed guardians for my husband in the event that something happened to me. I also created a living will and advanced care directive for me and then for my husband. And this became very critical in the last 2 years. My husband has had to have 5 surgeries in the last 18 months. These documents make sure that his medical preferences for treatment, including end-of-life care decisions, are carried out as he wishes, as we wish, as we had talked about. Now, these documents are important when he goes in for surgery, just in case something happens. I have these documents now on file with our healthcare provider, the doctors, the hospitals, and I have copies where both my kids can find them. Very, very important. He had a surgery 5 days ago, was the last one. And the first thing she asked me when we were admitting him for surgery was, have you filed your healthcare directives with the hospital and your doctor? And I said, yes, we have. So the second area is in the area of financial planning. This was a big deal for us because he had retired, but he hadn't really retired. So he had quit his job and then he had taken an interim position. And so he had never really retired. So we weren't getting any retirement income or Social Security. He was just, we were living off some savings and he was trying to work and earn some money. When all of this happened and I had to quit his job, I found myself in trouble because now I'm having to establish a long-term financial plan. I have to make a budget that's possible for our living arrangements, and I had to figure out how to pull the trigger on retirement and Social Security. And then I had to think about what happens if he needs possible care in the future, like in-home care, assisted living care, nursing home care. Well, I created a plan for all of that. It took months and months and months. And my friend, the attorney, did help me. And then another woman that I had a professional relationship with, who is a Medi-Cal specialist in California. We have Medi-Cal, and she was so helpful. I had worked with her very closely when we had been going through some circumstances with my mother-in-law and her financial needs to her during her nursing home care. So I know this woman and I can pull the trigger on getting Medi-Cal set up at any point. I'm telling you, calling this woman and her company was the best choice I ever made when we were dealing with my mother-in-law. And if I ever get to the point of needing Medi-Cal for my husband's care, I will be calling her way in advance to get it all set up because it takes so much pressure, and she handled all of it. The next thing I did was I reviewed all our Medicare insurance. I made a call to Medicare. I said, here's what I want. The woman spent about an hour on the phone with me, walking me through everything that's covered, how much they pay, what I should look for, what isn't. I just didn't want another financial hit because I was uninformed. And so she was very helpful, and I wrote notes, put them in my binder so that I know as we move into this process of aging, both my husband and I, what we can expect and what we can, call and get help for if we need it. The next area is to organize your documents. Now, if you had asked me 5 years ago where my birth certificate was, I would have said, it's in a file in a box in the attic. That is not where it needs to be. So you need to gather together certain documents and pieces of information, even if you're not in a situation like I am where my mom's on hospice or my husband's got mental and health issues, or even me. I mean, I'm at a point now where we just never know what's going to happen. So you need to keep certain documents in a file together, and then you need to show either your kids or another person who's named that will handle your affairs if something happens to you or you become incapacitated. So my daughter knows where all of this is, and soon so will my son. So here's what needs to be in the file: birth certificates for you and your husband, Social Security cards for you and your husband, any insurance policies that you have, any property deeds, pink slips for cars, boats, motorhomes, whatever, financial information and details like your bank accounts, your savings accounts, your retirement accounts, your Social Security accounts. You need to go into your Social Security account. You need to set up an online account, and then you need to go in and you can assign who will be the one that can take care of your Social Security account if something happens to you. You need a list of your credit card accounts with account numbers and contact information. I actually made photocopies, so my kids see the photocopies of front and back plus the phone numbers. They're all there. a list of usernames and passwords for your online accounts. Like, what's going to happen? We just had to deal with what's going to happen with my mom's Facebook account. She had to get a new phone. She no longer has access to email or social media. What's going to happen to those accounts? Your medical records, your medication lists. For us, those are all online in our app, but my kids could not get into those if they don't have the information. You could always scan these and create what they call an online vault. There's companies that will do it. It's kept secure. I chose not to because I live with my daughter. So all of this information is in a file in the household safe. So it's very, very accessible for any number of people who would be listed as guardians or people to step in if something happens. So let's talk about other legal safeguards. Well, I had to make sure that all of our accounts were joined. My friend, when her husband passed away, discovered that their bank account was not joined. He was an owner, she was not. They froze it, and for 6 weeks, she did not have access to their bank account. It was a mess. As soon as that happened, I went down to my bank and I said, I want to make sure, blah, 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 blah. And I said the verbiage, I want to be an owner on the bank account. And they said, okay, you're fine. You're fine. You're an owner. And I explained why. But it had never dawned on me that that was needed until I saw my friend walk through this chaos. You also need to plan because Social Security, if you're living with Social Security, it is paid out in a certain way that they could actually take it back. And then if you're living with, like me, my husband and I both are getting Social Security, I don't get to get both of them. And so it takes time for it to all get worked out. So you need to have a savings account in place with some extra money that's you don't touch just in case you get into a situation where you need it. If you are caring for a loved one with dementia, I am working with a caregiver whose husband has Alzheimer's, and they have had to cancel all of their credit accounts and open new bank accounts because they needed to limit his access because she didn't know, but he was going on to the home shopping network and he was pushing and they were getting into his phone and they were it was a mess. We had the same problem with my mom, which is why we just had to switch my mom to a phone with no social media or email. Once they get into your phone, my mom had 54 malware programs running in the background on her phone. And as we couldn't figure out how they were getting her credit card and bank accounts, but the information was stored in different apps on her phone and they were getting into the apps and getting it. So you have to be very, very careful. I'm not trying to scare you, just be careful. So I also monitor our bank accounts and my mom's bank accounts and credit cards daily. I have alerts that are texted to my phone to let me know and to keep track of charges and withdrawals. And if I don't recognize something, I go searching and figure it out. I've also had to walk through all of these steps with my sister in dealing with my mom. And we actually even went a step further with our mom. Last July, I spent the month of July in Milwaukee with my sister, and we had to make the decision with my mom and the hospice nurses to put my mom on hospice. Well, when we started talking about hospice and what that looked like, we decided to have a conversation with our mom about her final wishes. Things that she wanted, things that she wanted at a celebration of life, where she wanted a celebration of life, who she wanted involved, what she wanted said. And we created a simple will for her and a list of things that we would do or need to do after she passes. Then a few days later, I went to the mortuary near her apartment and talked to them. They suggested that we create a trust and prepay for all the things that would happen after my mom passes away. It's all paid for. My mom had some savings. My brother helped out. I helped out. It is so comforting to know that my sister and I are already protected and we know what's going to happen and that we will not only be following our mom's wishes, but it's all planned and paid for. All we need to do is make a phone call. So, by addressing and planning for all of these areas, I have assured that my mom, as well as both my husband and I, are protected and will be cared for as we desire if we become incapacitated, if, as my mom is on hospice, if we pass away. These are just a few of the things that I have done. This is not an exhaustive list by no means, because let me say, there are things that I have done to help my family feel safe and secure, but our journeys are different. And so I hope these suggestions help you start thinking about your own caretaking journey or planning for your future. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you know a caretaker, share the show with them using the links in the show notes below. My resources for these resolves is my book, Are You Ready to Find Joy When Life Gets Messy? And I have a messy life. I've said that before. If you want to know more about my caretaking journey, the link to purchase my book is below. And in the month of February, I will be doing a 4-part episode of our podcast based on the tools and tips that are in my book. So if you've read my book, you will know exactly what I'm talking about. And if you have not read my book, you might want to pick up a copy while you're listening. I'm not going to read the book, but I'm going to share every week for I think it's 4 to 6 weeks about the tools and tips that come directly from my book. If you want an in-depth copy of the Caretakers 31-Day Resolve Challenge, join my email list below and through the link, and I will let you know how and when to get it when it becomes available. As I close out today's episode, I want to pray for you. God, thank you so much for each caregiver who's listening. I know that there's probably a caregiver out there that's as overwhelmed as I was when all of these things started coming at me financially, legally. What do I do? How do I pay for this? How do I prepare for this? God, I pray that what I have done and my journey might help guide, direct, give some suggestions to this caretaker who's feeling overwhelmed and trying to figure out what to do. God, thank you as always for walking before me, for walking behind me, and most importantly, walking beside me. I thank you for loving me, and I thank you that you love each one of the caregivers who are listening. No matter where they are, no matter what country they're in, no matter what their journey looks like, you love them. You're walking with them. Thank you so much. I ask all of this in your precious Son's name. Amen. Let me bless you. May the Lord bless you and protect you. May the Lord make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. May the Lord look on you with favor and give you peace. I will be back tomorrow for day 21. And until then, it's all about him.